Willie Dixon was to the blues what Berry Gordy was to Motown. He invited me to come down to his studio. Whatever harmonica I had was the right key. Looking back, it's pretty remarkable because I think this was the first actual time I met Willie Dixon face to face. And lo and behold, I was on a first record produced by Willie Dixon.
Something could happen on this show. You never can tell.
Hi, everybody. It's Pam from the Rock and Roll Show, and I'm so happy to be with you. I'm here with my co-host, Joe Farina. Hi, Joe. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Pam. It's a pleasure to be with you, and hope everybody out there is safe and healthy and staying warm. We've had some crazy winter weather lately. Hopefully, hopefully that'll end soon. Before we introduce our very special guest, we want to just tell everybody out there, be sure to like the Dick Biondi Film Facebook group and Facebook page. Be sure to check out dickbiondyfilm.com. We also have a YouTube channel as well. We got a lot of great stuff on there. Be sure to check that out. And also, we are looking for sponsors still. So if anybody out there has a business or you know anybody that might be interested in sponsoring, reach out to me, reach out to Pam, and be happy, more than happy to talk to you about that.
Joe at dickbiondyfilm.com.
Joe at dickbiondyfilm.com. You are correct. That's exactly right. Tonight we have a very, very special guest. I mean, I've been waiting for this for a long time because I'm a big fan of this talented gentleman. He's an Emmy Award winner, 3-time Grammy nominee. He's discovered by Willie Dixon. He's regarded as one of the greatest harmonica players ever. He's a pioneering educator, and he's also the founder and leader of his band, Billy Branch and the Sons of Blues. It is our honor and our pleasure to welcome to the Rock and Roll Show, Mr. Billy Branch. Billy, how are you, sir?
All right. Thank you for that illustrious introduction. I'm doing fine. Thank you.
Oh,
Billy,
wonderful.
what a pleasure it is to have you with us. Thank you so much.
All right. Glad to be here.
Awesome. I mean, I'm a big, our show is called the Rock and Roll Show, but without the blues, there would be no rock and roll. And before we get into the crux of that, just want to talk about, if you could talk about your childhood and who your main influences were growing up, and also maybe talk about a little bit about who you really dig now in blues or in music in general.
Well, sure, Joe. Growing up, a youngster in Los Angeles, I was born here, Chicago, and moved to LA. My family moved when I was about almost 5. I returned here, go to college, University of Illinois, Chicago Circle. But the formative years I spent listening like any other typical youngster, listening to the radio, everything that was on the radio. And which included, of course, the Motown sound, James Brown, included the Beach Boys, the Doors, Hendrix, the Stones, everything. We listened to pop radio, and I listened to R&B radio. So I absorbed all of that, coming up. And were you asking me about who I'm listening to now?
Yeah, who are your not only your influences growing up, but are there any particular artists today, whether in blues or music in general, that you really enjoy listening to today?
Well, yeah, there's, I'm happy to say a lot of them are my friends. Ronnie Baker Brooks and I are very close. He calls me his big brother. Shamika Copeland, of course, who is now, I think, on a path to becoming a mega superstar, Little Ed. You know, the Chicago blues scene is like an extended family. And we have a very good connection. You know, like when, example, you walk into a club, any one of us, and we see each other, and we're immediately calling each other on stage, you know, without, hey, Billy, we're in the key of E. You know, I don't even get my coat off, but, you know, it's all love. It's all good. And, you know, unfortunately, Joe, so many of the greats that I admired and was mentored by and learned from, they're all gone. There's just a handful of the elders right now, which includes, of course, Buddy Guy and Jimmy Johnson. There's Bob Stroger, whose bassist, I think Bob just turned 90. But, you know, in my formative blues years, there were just literally hundreds of great artists that I was influenced by.
Billy, can we talk about your growing up years out in Los Angeles and how you managed to come to play the harmonica?
Certainly. It's I've told told this story quite a few times now, but I don't mind repeating it. And I happened to walk into a Woolworth's 5 and dime store one afternoon, and in the display case was a shiny harmonica, and I'd never seen anyone play one in person. But a little voice inside my head told me I could play it. So I asked the clerk how much it was. It cost $1. And I happened to have had $1 at the age of, I was probably all of 10, maybe 11 years old. And I purchased it and I opened it up. And as soon as I put it in my mouth, I could play any folk melody or Christmas song that I could think of.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, it was kind of amazing. But,
so it's almost like a natural ability.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I kept that harmonica, which was not the blues style of harmonica. It was I remember it was a folk style. It was a double reed harmonica, which is not used in blues. But you know, as far as I was concerned, it was the only harmonica that was, you know, that's all I knew. And that one would wear out and I'd go back and buy another one. And I keep doing that. And eventually, when I came back to Chicago, to my birthplace, and was introduced to the blues, it was like it was preparing me for that.
You're discovered by Willie Dixon, which I think that just blows my mind. Can you talk to our audience a little bit about how you were discovered by Willie Dixon, and what was your relationship like with him? What was he like? And the impact
Certainly.
he had on your career is pretty amazing.
Well, you know, Willie Dixon, a condensed description. Sometimes I say Willie Dixon was to the blues what Berry Gordy was to Motown. He was the A&R man in Chess Records, and he recorded and wrote hundreds of songs that were recorded, of course, not only by the blues greats such as Howlin' Wolf, Muddy Waters, Little Walter, Sonny Boy, but so many people in the pop and rock fields, all the rock artists from the Stones to Cream to Zeppelin and on, even Elvis Presley. Many people have recorded Willie Dixon tunes. And I was introduced to him by a young lady that worked on campus in one of the offices. And I found out she did some secretarial work for Willie. And so I bugged her. I said, hey, wow, you got to introduce me to Willie Dixon. And she said, okay. And I kept bugging her. And she said, finally, here's his number. You call him yourself. And so I did. And he invited me to come down to his studio. He had a recording studio where they also doubled as a rehearsal space for his band. It was called the Blues Factory. So on 7711 Racine. And I went down there, and it just so happened that Carrie Bell, who was a great influence of mine, was out of town, and they were rehearsing a song to record the next day. And it seemed to me that whatever that song was kind of an odd key, but I had whatever harmonica I had was the right key. And he said, "You got harmonica?" "Yeah, sure." And I rehearsed this song. This is really, looking back, it's pretty remarkable, because I think this was the first actual time I met Willie Dixon face to face. And he said, we rehearsed, and it was, he said, "Well, you know where Chess Studios is?" And I said, "No." And he told me, he said, "Well, meet down there at such and such a time, like 12 o'clock. And lo and behold, I was on a first record produced by Willie Dixon.
Unbelievable.
What was the name of that record, Billy? What was
that? The name of that record was The Last Home Run, and Willie didn't sing it. McKinley Mitchell, who was a well-known balladeer. McKinley wasn't what you would strictly classify as a blues singer, but he was a great vocalist. And this song Willie wrote because Hank Aaron was about to break Babe Ruth's home run record. And Willie, being the entrepreneur, really thinking guy he was, he's going to capitalize off this. So he wrote this song, that last home run. McKinley Mitchell sang it. And it even, it's on a 45. I think I tried to order one, because even had the sound of the bat cracking and the crowd cheering, you know. And I remember hearing it played, I think, on WVON radio. And I'm riding down Lakeshore Drive, and I want to just tell everybody in the car, "Hey, that's me on the radio." You know, it's really a great sensation to hear yourself, well, in general, but imagine the very first time you hear your harmonica being played on the radio. It's like, "Hey, everybody." You know, it was like that. Yeah.
Very exciting. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So you were living out in LA, and you grew up out there, and then you found yourself back in Chicago. You came to go to school, is that right? And then
that's correct.
You ended up in the Grant Park at the Blues Fest. Can you tell what happened there? You said you had sort of an awakening there.
Well, what happened was I came here on a scholarship to University of Illinois, Chicago Circle campus. You know, I got a degree in political science. Okay. But prior to beginning my classes, there was an advertisement. I don't know if I heard it on the radio or saw it in the newspaper. Free festival, Grant Park. Okay. Now, at that time, I had absolutely zero knowledge or interest of blues. Zero. Growing up in LA, we weren't exposed to it. And my mother and my parents, you know, it wasn't around the house. There were no blues records, so I didn't know. But I went down there, and I witnessed arguably the greatest blues festival ever produced in history. Some of the performers were Bo Diddley, Coco Taylor, Junior Wells, Buddy Guy, Betty Everett, Big Walter Horton, James Cotton, John Lee Hooker. There was about like 40 or 50 legendary Sleepy John Estes. And this festival was produced by Willie Dixon and Murphy Dunn, who was the son of the elder Mayor Daley's close ally, George Dunn. Now, if you remember the 1968 Democratic Convention, which was such a fiasco, I think this was a festival to kind of like wash over that terrible, you know, that terrible, and occasion where the 68th Democratic Convention. So Murphy Dunn, and he contacted Willie Dixon. Willie Dixon assembled all the musicians and provided the backup band for all the artists. And this was the very first day I ever heard live blues, August 30th, 1969.
Wow.
And it was a life-changing. And then just to cut to the chase, August 30th, 1969, very first day. 7 years later, I was Willie Dixon's harmonica player for 6 years. Yeah.
That's quite an introduction to the blues. I mean,
yeah,
top that.
Yeah.
I mean, Willie Dixon, he's known as the father of modern Chicago blues, and for you to connect with him like that is just pretty sensational. And bouncing off of that, I was watching YouTube recently, and it was footage of the host was Dan Aykroyd, and he's talking about the state of the blues in 1983, and this was a year after a few years after the Blues Brothers came out and all that, and you're in this particular footage, and it's a footage of you with a blues band performing on Maxwell Street,
right?
And I wanted to ask you, what was that atmosphere and community like at that time performing on Maxwell Street? What was that like?
Well, that was Maxwell Street was the place where a lot of the famous blues musicians from the Mississippi, a lot of them, that was one of their first showcase areas. They said Little Walter performed there, Muddy Waters. It was the open flea market. They said you could buy, if you couldn't find what you wanted to buy at Maxwell Street, it didn't exist. It was an open flea market, but of course, it was also the site of live free blues on Sundays. And me and some of my buddies would frequent there. It was right next to University of Illinois, which sadly were instrumental in the demolition or the removal of Maxwell Street, because the University of Illinois took over that area. But that atmosphere, and in that scene you're referring to, in the audience are my Blues in Schools kids. If you remember at the end, it culminates with Dan Aykroyd singing Sweet Home Chicago with my kids.
Yes.
And, but that was just it was like the unofficial Chicago Blues Festival that existed for many decades before the city saw fit to make the blues an official showcase. But Max, it was fun. It was loose. It was, there were probably 3, 4, maybe 5 bandstands. And what they do, they'd run the electricity from somebody's window. I assume they paid them a little bit of money. And that's how they powered the amplifiers. And they were just jam sessions set up on the streets.
Unbelievable. Can you imagine? Just imagine, at that time, walking down Maxwell Street, and my dad used to take me there every now and then too, and you would hear this remarkable music, and any day you could see the likes of Billy Branch, Muddy Waters, performing performing, and just to capture that excitement and those moments.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really it's very, nowadays you're hard pressed to find something so
Right.
special like that. The atmosphere is a little bit different, but back then, I mean, that
Right.
was
It was
pure
raw and
excitement.
real back then.
Yeah.
I mean, it was right down there in the streets. I remember going
Yeah.
as a child down there. Absolutely.
You went down there too?
I was down there. That's the first time I heard the blues was on Maxwell Street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's
it was
fantastic.
great. I mean, sometimes me and my buddies, we might been hanging from the Saturday night before, and you say, well, we're up. Let's go on down to Maxwell Street without even sleeping, but it was, it was electric. It was, it was Chicago's best known and probably largest flea market at that time.
For sure. I don't think the new one quite measured up, but
right.
Anyway, that's another story. I wanted to ask you about the blues in the schools. That is so cool. What a great program. How did that come to be? And tell us about it.
Well, I've been participating as a blues in schools instructor since 1978. So I'm the oldest continuous practitioner. I've done the most comprehensive effort because I've actually had my entire band fly to different locations. For example, Seattle, we do like a month-long residency, but I've had my band in Antwerp, Belgium, doing a 2-week residency. And basically, I've done this in many different capacities. Sometimes it's a performance with me and a guitarist, and we integrate the history of the blues within the context of the performance. A lot of audience participation, have some children come up on stage, and I'll have them, after they get up there, I said, you didn't know it, but you're going to be slaves. And I have one pick cotton and one chop wood just to illustrate the roots of the blues. And so I've done situations where I've had 750 kids in one auditorium, all with harmonicas, teaching them harmonica all at once. I've had 1,500 kids march to the opening of the ribbon cutting ceremony of the B.B. King Museum in Indianola, Mississippi. As recently as 2 years ago, I taught in the Andes Mountains of Ecuador, teaching my classes in Spanish, not perfectly, but in Spanish. And I've done it in Italy. I've done it all around the world. I've had, from my very first residency in 1978, I still have former students that come out to the clubs to see me.
Wow.
And I have so stories that would bring tears to your eyes about how students' lives were changed, students who were dysfunctional and antisocial, who, because of this program, became more engaged and more were able to interact better in social and academic settings. Yeah,
it's wonderful.
I mean, I'm probably stating the obvious here, but number one, what you're doing for the blues and for its traditions and its history is just dynamite. And I mean, it's just sensational. In music, you could, like you were describing, you've been fortunate enough to travel to all parts of the world to teach kids the blues, and it seems like music or blues music, it can really, it's universal and it can connect with so many people on so many different levels, no matter where they come from or no matter what their background is. But when it comes to music and blues music, it just seems to come together beautifully.
So many instances. I've been to China 3 times now, and just year before last year, we were scheduled for a 3-week tour with my band Sons of Blues this year, which is postponed. But you know, in spite of language barriers, as you said, the blues is so universal because it's the only music that you is labeled a feeling and emotion as well as a music style. You can't say I got the jazz, I got the hip hop, but everybody goes through struggles and trials and tribulations, you know, and yet it is an authentic African American folk art form. And the kids, they get it. You know, a lot of times you think, well, how could kids? But you know, I mean, it's so simple to compose a blues song, AAB. You know, you say one line, you repeat it, third line that rhyme. I didn't do my homework today. I can't go out and play. Didn't do my homework today. I can't go out and play. I feel so bad, like a ball game on a rainy day. Written a blues song, and I've had some of these former students have written songs not just about the lighthearted or superfluous kind of issue, but really serious political and social, about gangs sometimes, about war, about rape, about hunger, and about serious issues. And the blues, as you said, I think it is the most universal music of all, because it speaks to the human condition. We all have problems.
We all have the blues at some time.
And the whole world's got them bad right now.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, they do make you feel better. Somehow playing those songs do make you feel better.
Certainly.
They do.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
So
when you hear a good blues band, you know, you at the club at Roses or Kingston Mines or Buddy Guys or wherever, you know, it just like, yeah, man.
You got it.
If you can, Billy, can you talk about the album Roots and Branches, the songs of
Certainly.
Walter? Really just standout stuff there.
Thank you. And by sheer coincidence, I have one right here.
All right, there we go. Nice. Talk about that, boy.
Yeah, we came out last year, and it was up for a number of awards for the BMA's Blues Music Awards. And this was a tribute to the greatest blues harmonica player who ever lived, Little Walter. I would say he is the most emulated of any harmonica player in any genre, because I've gone to China and they have a Little Walter school. In the mountains of Ecuador, I had kids come up and they're trying to play like Little Walter. And of course, Little Walter pioneered the use of a cheap microphone and an amplifier, thus creating a sound, that distortion sound, using distortion and feedback to where the harmonica no longer sounded like a harmonica. He wasn't the very first one to amplify it, but he's the guy that refined it. And we, over the years, my wife, Rosa, and I have become friends with Little Walter's daughter, Marion Diaz, named after her dad, who was Marion Walter Jacobs. And we're part of the Little Walter Foundation. So Marion wanted a tribute album to her daughter, to her dad, and my wife was pushing me, and I was kind of pushing back. He said, man, there's been so many Little Walter tribute albums. Does the world really need one? And they're like, yes, it needs one. And so as we started, I said, okay. And then we started rehearsing, and some of these songs started taking a life of their own. And you've listened to it, and you'll notice that we did some traditional arrangements like Little Walter did, but we also contemporized about half of the CD and made it, did it in our own way. And it was a challenge because, it's like if you're going to play Charlie Parker or Coltrane, he's that level of genius. And we had, I wanted to express the style of Little Walter without compromising and without trying to copy. And so there was a lot of variables, and I think my band really came through and we did a good job. And of course, Marion, Little Walter's daughter, is telling a few short anecdotes about her dad.
Oh my God.
Sounds wonderful.
That's wonderful. And if anybody's going to do a little Walter tribute, the right person to do it and to do it right would be you. And
Well, thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Here's some CDs, which you see in the background. Is
Okay.
Roots and Branches, of course. This is Blues Shock, our prior CD, which has got some great stuff on it. And this was Chicago Plays the Stones. Have you heard this?
No.
Joe? Oh, this is great. This features some of Chicago's top artists, including Buddy Guy, myself, Carlos Johnson, Jimmy Burns, Billy Boy Arnold, John Primer, Ronnie Baker Brooks. And this is what we're doing. We're going kind of in reverse. We're doing more bluesy versions of the Stones songs. And, you know, the Stones used to do more rocky versions of blues songs. So, and this is it's a double album. And at first, Mick Jagger and Keith Richards were passed on being a part of it, but after hearing it, they wanted in. So they're making cameo appearances on
Beautiful.
it.
Right. Wonderful.
So of all your travels and all your awards, you've received
Mhm.
many humanitarian awards. You've traveled the world. Of all the things you've done, what has been your greatest achievement and your greatest joy?
I think probably, well, one of my greatest experiences, and I think one of the things that probably affected my approach and my affected me as a musician and my career was, of course, my tenure with Willie Dixon. Okay, because Willie was not just a blues musician and a writer. He was a philosopher, and he often stressed the importance of the blues in even in socio-political terms. At one point, Willie had a mimeograph, you know, this is before Xerox, mimeograph letter sent to every member of Congress and to the FCC, stating that there was a conspiracy to keep the blues off of the radio. And Willie made the connection that if you by keeping the blues off the radio, you are denying a people's culture to be showcased. In other words, you're marginalizing the history of a people because, as you well know, the blues contains so much history. You know, the blues I now call the soundtrack of African American existence in this country. And so Willie was very deep, and I think it was from Willie that helped instill in me this deep love and respect to allow me to effectively teach children. And I think that could probably be my greatest accomplishment, the fact that I've reached so many young souls across the board. You know, in Chicago, I would work every year for about 10 years or more. I would work with Grant Elementary, which was one of the poorest crime-ridden parts of town, Rockwell Garden Projects. But these were my kids, and we'd open up the Chicago Blues Fest every year. And those kids, they had so much heart and talent. And the fact that I'm still in touch with some of these former youngsters who now have grandkids, you know,
Yeah.
is, you know, that just shows that they got it. And it wasn't, I have a handful of students that went on to become professional musicians, but the fact that they understood the importance and were able to enjoy the blues even as youngsters, whereas a lot of their peers would be, I don't want to hear that old stuff, man. They got it. They understood the importance and the historical significance of it.
That's great. That's quite a legacy you're leaving there, Billy. Really. And you're a historian as much as you are a musician.
Yes.
It's been
yeah, because I feel like I'm history. I feel like I don't know if I'm historical or hysterical. I look back, and when our first performance was with Willie Dixon at the Berlin Jazz Festival, the Sons of Blues, right? 1977. Our very first gig was at the Berlin Jazz Festival, and we were billed as the new generation of Chicago blues. And everyone in my band, except for myself, was the son of a famous blues musician. We had Willie Dixon's son, Freddie. We had Carrie Bell's son, Lurie, and we had Garland Whiteside, who was the son of Clifton James, who was Willie's drummer and Bo Diddley's original drummer. So we were the
Amazing.
New generation, and now they're calling me like the Godfather or something.
Well, hey, it's better than the alternative.
Yeah, you ain't lying.
Well, how can people get in touch with you, Billy?
They can reach me through my website, billybranch.com. And there's another address that my wife told me to use that I am forgetting right now. Oh, this is terrible.
And you're on your label is Alligator Records, correct? So
I'm on Alligator currently. Well? Yes.
Oh, wonderful. Oh, this has been great.
It's been a lesson about the blues for me. I just enjoyed this so much. I could talk to you all night.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
So thank you very much.
Maybe we'll have to do it again sometime.
Yeah.
That sounds
awesome.
Yeah. And just to remind everybody, you can find those CDs and much more on Billy's website, billybranch.com. Billy is with Alligator Records as well. And Billy, Pam and I, our audience, everybody, we can't thank you enough for joining us on the Rock and Roll Show. This has been absolutely fabulous. It's really an honor and a pleasure to have you with us tonight. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed it, and thank you all. Thank you both for having me. And look, hopefully in the near future, see each other at a show at a live performance.
That'd be wonderful.
That would be awesome. That's a done deal. Absolutely. And
right
before I depart, just want to thank Billy Branch. I want to thank Pam and thank everybody for watching. Be sure to check out billybranch.com. And Billy, I think you have a Facebook page as well.
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
So check that out. Make sure you like Billy's Facebook page. And
I think we got Instagram. We need to be more proactive, but
okay.
Facebook keeps pretty current.
Okay, wonderful. Mm-hmm. And you can learn more about the Dick Biondi film. Website is dickbiondifilm.com. Be sure to join our Facebook group, like our Facebook page, subscribe to our awesome YouTube channel. We will have this video posted on the YouTube channel. Until next time, everybody stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you next time. Thanks again, Billy.
All right. Thank you both.
Billy. Thank you, Joe.
All right. Peace, everybody.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Be safe.
All right.